statue is buried. The latest chapter of the rivalry is written as an epitaph for Europe, and FlyQuest eliminates G2 from MSI.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Global Gaming Network channel on Today in Esports for another jam-packed episode on this fine Monday. My name is Andy. Joined with me is Davis, and as you just saw in that opening clip, we got so much to discuss. Mid-season Invitational is kicking off, and it's continuing on throughout this week. We got Counter-Strike news, Call of Duty Rostermaina, all of that, and so much more. But we're going to be starting off with MSI. That's going on up north in Vancouver, Davis. And I'm not going to lie, Europe's been a little lackluster up there.
They have. I mean, they have not showed up, and I'm pretty excited about it. You know, NA, we're still alive in the tournament, so obviously I'm pulling for the NA team, so we're still alive. EU has departed a little bit early, but some difficult matchups for them as well. Yeah, so far.
I mean, throughout the entirety of this, right, we had all the play-ins. Just last week, we had 4 teams having to compete to just reach top 2 to then join this double elimination bracket as well. And throughout all of it, again, Europe, they came up a little bit short. Obviously, throughout all of those different play-ins, we did end up having both BLG and G2 Esports make their way in towards the playoff bracket. But we're going to be starting off the conversation with G2 Esports. I mean, this is Europe's poster child, if you will. G2 barely even scraped by in that bracket stage against GAM to actually beat them in map 5 to then make it to the playoff bracket. But in their opening matchup versus Gen G, it started off very strong. I mean, G2 starting off on the red side of the map, they were in a commanding force throughout the entirety of this first game, Davis. And throughout all these different team fights, it just felt like that Gen G simply could not come to play. LCK's #1 came up absolutely flat in this first map.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy to see. I mean, G2 with a lot of their comfort picks here, you know, you had Cap sitting on Yone, you had Broken Blade sitting on Jackson. They were able to perform really, really well this game 1 and surprised me right out the gate. You know, watching this game 1, I actually thought, dang, G2 has a really good chance in this series there. They took complete control of game 1. I mean, they got every single objective that was available on the map besides the Void Grubs, but every single Dragon, Baron, they were able to secure it. So really, really good play coming out of Skewmon in the jungle, but obviously we know it did not continue through the rest of the series.
And now in game 2, though, Gen G, I mean, they got a lot of their good picks coming in towards this one. I mean, you got the Jhin plus the Alistar combination down low, and although you did have Caps at least on the rise in mid, a lot of these early kills just kind of spiraled out of control for G2. They just never felt like that they got a foothold back in towards the game. Then G2 inevitably were able to tie up the series going in towards game number 3. It was a much more methodical game. This is a much more, I guess, LCK game. Very, very slow pace. But you did end up having Ruler really coming in towards his own on the red side. Had the misfortune this time around. Very interesting little endeavor right now. The adventure that Nessie just went on. The Rift Herald, of course, traveling all the way inside of the blue side, blue buff. But hey, sometimes Nessie got to get her money's worth on the map.
Yeah, I got to comment on that too, because I just want to say that is like the craziest play. When that happened live, I was like, wow, my brain would have never, ever. Yeah, like, what are you even doing? He rode the scuttle up there, and I was like, wait, this is actually one of the best plays I've seen all year. So honestly, just showing great play out of Korea and great mechanics. Canyon was a huge jungler here throughout this whole series. Lee Sin here in this game, he was just a tremendous pick.
Yeah, so Gen G were able to take the next 3 maps after losing the initial to G2, and then G2 would then be sent down into the lower bracket. But on the other side, again, BLG, they were able to win from the play-in, much like G2, but from the upper bracket side. They went up against Movistar Koi in their opening matchup, and BLG came out strong. Game 1 strat for both sides saw a lot of comfort picks, namely for JoJo getting that Yone. BLG, who would take immediate advantage of their play-in stage matches, they were very comfortable on that stage, and you could see it in this game number 1.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, BLG looked dominant in this game 1. And I mean, after this game 1, you would have thought MKOI would have been down and out, in my opinion, with no chance. But they were still able to battle. Another thing I want to comment here about this map number 1, Aurora, the pick out of Knight, he was tremendous and carried all of map 1.
Yeah, dude, K-Knight has had a fantastic stage so far. And I know this is only like the second stint that we've got from K-Knight as far as MSI is concerned. Again, throughout all the different play-ins that we got to see, the match versus G2 Esports, the match versus GAM, K-Knight has really been stepping in and coming into his own. And you need a lot of that, especially when you think about who's going to make a dent in towards that championship run. Your mid laners definitely need to be on point as a split team fight still going on. Again, Movistar Koi just were forever in the driver's seat throughout the entirety of this. Elk and Knight throughout the entirety of game number 2 would continue on with such antics. Game number 3, BLG, though, would pull out the Elise support, catching Koi just a bit off guard.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, This game 3, you know, was a little bit slow developing. You see right here at 28 minutes, BLG only having a lead of around 1,000 gold. But really right here, this fight is when everything just gets blown out of water for MKOI, and they're just really not able to recover. You see Silas here securing a double kill, and it goes on. Actually, right here, it's still really, really close, but BLG obviously going to dominate this fight. You're going to see it's a really good fight here. MKOI actually able to respond a little bit, but then you see, oh no, what are they going to do? BLG has to run, and it's over.
Yeah, I mean, BLG actually started off that fight very strong, to your point, right? It's just unfortunate that it then inevitably got pushed into that game number 4, and then Movistar Core were able to take that series in, or lose that series in 4, so they're knocked down in the lower bracket to face Flying Oysters. But FlyQuest versus G2, I mean, these are two house name favorites at MSI. A lot of loving names on both sides. Blippo versus Caps, just for notable names. Top lane versus mid lane for sure. But, I mean, G2 coming in towards this series, going up against FlyQuest, who got dismantled versus China's #1 of anyone's Legend. Again, G2 Esports just could not play this weekend.
Exactly, and I just can't do anything but smile. You have Caps right here taking the Cassiopeia, thinking that it would give him an advantage, but FlyQuest rising to the occasion. Quad playing the off-pick Rise in the first game and still able to play very, very well. FlyQuest is just on a different level this match.
Yeah, so I really got to shout out a handful of players when it comes down to FlyQuest. I mean, Inspired has had a fantastic season so far. Chris and I have constantly been talking about what Inspired has been able to produce continuously through the jungle, even on the Trundle pick. Very, very random, but still, this bruiser style for FlyQuest constantly is working out, and it's worked out in LTA North. It's working out in MSI. You can see in their opening round 1 matchup, Get Anyone's Legend just absolutely aped them, and they just never really got a foothold in the early 20 minutes. But you're able to see what it means for the advantage for FlyQuest. When they play that bruiser composition, they're able to get a steep gold advantage, and they're able to absolutely snowball and then isolate targets. They just have way too much HP for you to chew through before you end up getting towards their backline. So G2 Esports eliminated top 8 in the playoff bracket. And as I was talking about and hinting earlier, Movistar Koi, well, now they had a date with the Flying Oysters in the lower round 1.
Yes, they do. And the Oysters have been a team that I've just fallen in love with over the course of this event. I mean, Hongq, I think he is an absolutely exceptional mid laner, and he's played against Faker already. He's played here against JoJo, and he's performed in both series. Obviously, they lost the one against T1. We're able to get the victory here against Koi, but Hongq just looking like a tremendous player, and I predict that he'll end up in some very big organization by next year.
Yeah, a CFO's organization, just to play off of that word in general, in-game is something you could always write home about. Every single pick that they have is for a reason. They're so good and so astute at comboing their ultimates and isolating targets continuously. Health bars get depleted amidst a little bit of a team fight. And then once you get themselves a certain amount of lead, I mean, what's a casual 17 kills to 7? Good luck trying to team fight this one if you are Movistar Koi. You are certainly down horrendous in this game number 2, as the global comp would put a dominating performance for CFO and to stamp a 2-0 lead within this series. I mean, again, it felt like they could certainly do no wrong, although it did end up going towards game 4. Thanks to this game number 3, Movistar Koi finally were able to get on the board.
Yes, they were. And finally, Supa on the Xayah pick and Aloya on the Poppy. They were finally able to find some success in the bot lane that was really able to propel Koi forward in this match. Obviously, CFO was a very, very tough opponent that they could face, but the mid to late game really fell in Koi's favor, and they were able to secure a win here in the series.
Well, Movistar Koi joining the likes of G2 Esports will be the first 2 to be eliminated from mid-season's invitational outside of the 2 teams that were eliminated from the play-in stage. But semantics aside, LEC, we are down horrendous. I mean, this is definitely not the place that you would want to be. Normally, LEC are outplacing LTA, but they actually got outplaced and actually eliminated by LTA North's representative of FlyQuest. So very interesting conversations developing up north in Vancouver. Again, that tournament is ongoing throughout the entirety of this week, and we're culminating into a championship at the end of the week's end. So you definitely want to make sure that you're staying tuned and glued to your seats throughout all the different facets. We also got Chris. He's boots on ground up in Vancouver as well. He's going to be experiencing the whole thing, and we'll make sure to give you all of his knowledge when he touches his base back here in North Carolina come Monday's time.
Get down by 7. Doable if it was a little earlier in the game. Oh my God!
Whoa,
oh my God!
what?
Oh my God! 2 players just off the map, and now
some insane moments coming through from Halo this past week. And we had a Forge tournament ongoing. You heard one familiar voice. That would be Eli the Ninja. He's, of course, casting that with Macau. Those guys are freaking hilarious. But I mean, when you got Forge tournaments, those are community-made maps. Made by community members, and you can see from those community members not so knowledgeable where some of those legends may be.
Yeah, I had the exact same reaction as Eli, actually, when those people fall off the map. I was like, oh, that could be really bad because, I mean, they're literally 1 kill off winning the game, and then those 2 people die, and now you're 3. So actually really crazy how that unfolded. Thankfully, they were able to secure the win still.
Yeah. So as this was all ongoing for LVT, here's the final moment. Falls off the map, leading by 7, now only leading by 5, like you were talking about here, Davis. So 47 v 42. I'm pretty sure they will still end up going on to win the map. Did TLF. I mean, that's such an insurmountable lead when it comes down to Slayer, but we do love some good community fun. Again, Forge, come from an old head myself. That is a staple when it comes down to Halo. Some of the best maps were made in Forge. You heard it here, and I'm sure a lot of the old heads would also agree with me. But we also have a lot of different things ongoing as far as Halo is concerned. We do have LANs to talk about in later weeks, but most importantly, in the Halo community, online leagues are developing specifically for the Halo Pro League. LVT has then combated with their hands to then offer up best of 7s that are happening daily throughout the entirety of the week. We had a lot of good matches, specifically El Clasico throughout this past week. All best of 7s, Optic versus FaZe was on our screens for a pro match, a best of 7 just in the middle of our week.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the most exciting thing about it is how many matches you have just throughout the week. I mean, you have time in the afternoon to watch one game. So it was really exciting. And then you have, like you said, the El Clasico, FaZe versus Optic, just on a random Tuesday or whatever day it is in the middle of the week, you get to watch it. So a great match. Obviously, this one was a lot lopsided in Optic's favor, but still great to see this type of Halo in the midweek.
I mean, it's just dope to be able to see this in general, right? You got 3/4 of old Optic going up against new Optic, right? You got Penguin, formerly known as Dead Zone, Trippy playing alongside Lucid now. They just acquired Snakebite to this FaZe roster. And then Optic are the team, right? You know, they just won the most recent tournament. Everybody's been eyeing them. You know, Matt Formal, he wanted his super team. He got his super team. They made it a lower bracket round 1, absolute crazy run-in. But as you were talking about there in that best of 7, clearly the more polished team as it currently stands are Optic Gaming. They were able to take that one pretty decisively. But as Optic are currently leading 1-0, not the only matchup that we did have in week 1. We also had Omit going up against Complexity, but furthermore, this was the scoreboard for Optic versus FaZe. And like you were talking about, outside of like the Slayer, I mean, it wasn't really too close. I mean, map number 1, maybe within 1, but I mean, the Aquarius and Live Fire, I mean, we gotta maybe start a dialogue here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you said, they kind of started out a little bit close, but then after that Slayer, it just looks like everything fell apart, and they just couldn't really find any momentum.
Yeah. Any momentum needs to be found whatsoever. Again, plenty more matches if you play, plenty more time for that new FaZe roster to be able to find their footing. But as I was hinting at, we already had another match up being played, another best of 7 throughout the entirety of the past week of week 1 for the Halo Pro League. It was Complexity going up against Omit. Omit, a roster, if you're familiar in the Call of Duty scene, has now been venturing into the world of Halo. They also signed a Command Station. It is the first woman to actually win a Halo FFA tournament. But how well did their pro team fare going in towards this one of Complexity? I mean, for Omit, you got some household names. You got Lethal, you got Sparty McFly. But when you're looking at Complexity on the other side, old EU United duo of Ryan Noob and King Nick, plus Mental from Shopify Rebellion, this Complexity squad is godlike. Specifically for Cherish. He's their young gun with a sniper. I remember watching this live, Davis. That first shot, godlike for the killing spree. Only has one more shot. Might as well use it the best way you possibly can. He ended up getting a body shot, and he set up his teammates for those last few kills. But it was the way that the Complexity were dictating the pace throughout the entirety of that map on Origin. You said that Optic versus FaZe weren't close. This one was almost just as equally as a blowout.
Yeah, almost a mirroring scoreboard here. I mean, you have the close game 1, a decently close Slayer, and then the wheels fall off. And they actually were able to secure, Omit was able to secure a round in this live fire here in the last game of the series. But Complexity rolling again in a 4-0 fashion.
Yep, so we got all of those happening. 8 teams will be playing throughout the entirety of round-robin matches. Again, week 1 is just completed. TSM versus Shopify Rebellion did have to get rescheduled, so we're going in towards week 2 with an absolute barn burner. We'll have FaZe versus SSG. Envy will have a doubleheader of 1 versus Optic, and then 1 versus SSG as well. You want to make sure that your butts are glued to the seats because we got money being played for all the top 8 teams. The best teams in Halo are going to be competing against each other in best of 7s throughout the week until we end up packing our bags for Salt Lake City. But if you want to aim like the best, I mean, it could end up being Monacy, it could be Eli the freaking Ninja. Why don't you go ahead and download Aim Labs? It is the #1 trainer as far as aim is concerned online. Here's a word from our sponsor.
Games are about competition, a way to test our skill and prove we are better. Challenge is in our nature. We need to know what we're capable of. How far can we go? It's a question that drives millions of gamers to push themselves and prove that it's only a matter of sheer will. Ever since first-person shooters came into the esports scene, players have never stopped defying the odds through the most important mechanic of them all: aim. Aim is everything. It's a set of skills that needs to be trained, and this is where science and gaming meet in Aim Labs, the aim trainer that redefines what gaming means, because science doesn't leave anything to chance. Winning is never a matter of luck. Every brief moment of greatness takes constant and unrelenting preparation, and that's exactly what Aim Labs is about. We enable players to thrive and upset the balance. Together, we elevate play.
Again, Aim Labs, the #1 leading trainer online. Make sure that you're able to aim like the best. Otherwise, you might end up getting benched from your Counter-Strike 2 team, which is exactly where we're going as far as our conversations are concerned. Counter-Strike 2 is under the scrutiny of Rostermaina. Davis, what the heck's going on over the CS2 team, man?
Well, I've been waiting patiently, and today is finally the day. Monday, July 7th, Spirit is finally announcing the changes that they're going to be making with their roster. I think we've all known they've been kind of loading, and it's been coming for a while, and it's finally here. We get to see, Magix, who probably hasn't had the best year, obviously has a great place in our hearts. He was on the major winning team, but hasn't been himself this year. He has officially been benched from the team, and we actually have figured out who they're going to be replacing him with.
Yeah, Gerber baby down again. I mean, as far as Magix is concerned, he's had a lot of clutch moments. He set himself up for a lot of different clutch moments, but I mean, it's just he's the weakest link. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you look at it right here, and it's really just the firepower aspect. I mean, obviously, he is a good util player, but he's not like solely a util player. He needs to have that firepower behind him, and he just really hasn't been delivering it this year.
Yeah, so the replacement that they're going to end up going towards this time around would be Zwei. Zwei is a 17-year-old absolute phenom for Spirit, and honestly speaking, maybe that could be the replacement they need to add extra firepower towards their roster. Who knows? All we know at the end of the day is that Donk, that leading AK, cannot do everything as a rifler himself. So definitely hoping that this young buck of Zwei can end up helping this team out, reach the levels that we assume that they can reach.
Yeah, 100%. You see right there, 77 out of 100 firepower. So hopefully he can bring some of that firepower that he's been bringing for his previous team, Amiga, bring it over to Spirit, and hopefully they can see some success because they really need it. Obviously, Donk, we know that he can deliver in big times, but they need somebody else to step up. I think it was a really, really good plan for them to lock down Chopper. He's been their IGL for a while, and there was some actual talk about him possibly being released, but I think it's really smart to keep your IGL around and just keep that system of your team around, not change it up too much, and just try to bring some links in to increase the firepower.
Not the only team that's making a roster change are Spirit. We also got to talk about Furia. Not maybe so much as a direct roster change, so much as it is a securing of the bag, right? Yakindar was already on this roster from loan previously. Helped Furia actually reach some pretty good heights when it comes down to the previous major.
Yeah, 100%. And you're really happy to see this because you see a good bit of these moves that have been happening recently. A lot of loan moves that have been going on and a lot of loan deals that have actually ended. But here you finally see Yakindar actually securing the deal with Furia. And that's actually a really, really good stint so far that we've seen. As you just mentioned at the major, he was able to get them very, very far into stage 3, and something that, earlier in the year, Furia was really, really lacking placements. And I think Fallen, with the system that he's building there and his team, and obviously this addition of Yakindar is really starting to pay off for them.
Yeah, LATAM representation is forever growing. We'll have to see what Yakindar is able to do, as Furia will be in a competition towards the middle and later ends of this month. But again, more teams making roster changes. Wildcard are actually end up making roster changes as well. Came up short in stage 1 at Blast Major. I actually had them making it out of stage 1 3-0. They got milliwapped in that 2-3 matchup. But one of those things, they're actually going to be picking up Peeping and Friend in lieu of benching both Stainslaw and Fizz.
Yeah, kind of surprising to me. I thought, like, the same thing as you. I really thought that they would advance farther than they did in Austin, and I think, getting bounced out of stage 1 was where they really drew the line and were like, okay, we need to do something. Because before that, they'd actually had some really positive results, and I think that they were looking pretty good. But then, you arrive at that major, everything that you've been working for and building is that moment, and when you don't arrive and do anything, it really hurts the mental of the team. And so I think it was a time for some changes. Obviously, Stanislaw and Fizz, they're going to be departing from the team, but excited to see a new look from Wildcard.
Yeah, again, Peeping and Friend will have to see what Wildcard are going to be able to produce for themselves. Again, a team that came up short, but when you're not the top 12 teams, I guess, you're basically hoping to be able to pick up any of these young talents and be able to produce some better results. But Na'Vi are also going to be making a roster change as well. Not so much as a full-on change, so much as it is just a call-up. They have then brought up Makazi from their academy roster, but still no official announcement from Na'Vi on who is being benched from their starting team.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but I mean, you look at the numbers that he's been putting up here on his HLTV profile. He's got 88 firepower. He's got a util score of 50, and his entry score is 90. So kind of weird because he looks like an entry fragger. Obviously, he's got 80% entry frag and firepower, but you also see that he's really good with his util as well. So could be a diamond in the rough player. It's not clear who they're going to be removing from their roster, but clearly Na'Vi needs some type of firepower to bring them back to the top. They've been really, really terrible this year, in my opinion, based on their old. I mean, they're the Giants of Counter-Strike. Na'Vi is the team in Counter-Strike, and they have just not been that or been anywhere close this year. So exciting to see them making moves, but we'll see who they actually move off the roster.
Yeah, it's like you're thinking of like big names, like in Counter-Strike, it's like Astralis, Na'Vi, FaZe, and now Vitality as well. So it's just like, when you're thinking about like Na'Vis, they came up short like back at the Austin where they made it to the playoff bracket, right? And then they got milliwatt by Vitality. I mean, that's a tough matchup anyway that you shake it, but I mean, so you would expect them to play them a little bit close, but not good enough. Yeah, I know that JL is very, very unhappy with how that team is currently being played. But we got all of that roster mania still happening throughout Counter-Strike. We have tons of different tournaments that are going to be being played throughout the entirety of the month of July. IM Cologne is all the way at the end of the month. And then we also end up having the Fissure Playground. We'll have Furia in both of those two tournaments, as well as Pain. So it should be very fun to be able to see what the LATAM representation is going to be able to do to produce in Counter-Strike in all of its future. But throughout all of that, Counter-Strike will continue on with those conversations in Today in Esports and Global Gaming Network channel and all of its videos throughout the entire of the week. So make sure you guys subscribe and get involved in the comments down below on what you think is the most impactful roster change throughout the entirety of this past month thus far. Moving over towards Esports World Cup, though. Finally, we are packing our bags. Social media influencers, opening teams, and everybody else combined are already mid-flight to Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. For the first week of the Esports World Cup, should be a very fun time specifically for us, Davis, because this is going to be the start of a month-and-a-half long stint. And throughout the first few games that we're going to end up having, myself, I'm a little bit more of a happier guy considering I get my Rensport, that's sim racing for that week one. But we also got, what do we have? Fatal Fury, Apex Legends, Dota 2, Mobile Legends Bang Bang, and the opening ceremonies on the
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm most excited for right now. I mean, the Post Malone concert to open things up, I just think that's perfect. But I'm really excited for Rensport too. I mean, I've kind of recently gotten into sim racing, and so I'm really, really new to it. But I think it's an actual crazy game, and I'm really excited to see the world's best compete at it. So really excited for that, as well as the Apex Legends. They will wrap up on Sunday with their finale. So really exciting time. The Valorant playoffs will also be starting that weekend. So just coming at you full swing in this summer. Esports World Cup is here.
Yeah, that's right. Again, as far as all the format is concerned, throughout all these different games, you'll see it here on the schedule. Everything's just kind of like spaced off across the entirety of the week. You're starting off with like the group stage, last chance playing for Rensport, group stage then for Rensport. But that's starting on the 8th and the 9th. Dota 2's group stage is also starting at the end of the day on the 8th. Tough to follow along with it, but anywhere that you see gold, that's where the finals will end up being. You have all the group stages going in towards the finals. The only thing that would be different would be Apex. Here's a look in towards the next week, and we'll break that down a little bit further on Monday, July 14th. So make sure that you guys subscribe and stay tuned along for all the breakdown of what happened in that first week until July 13th, and then what you could be previewed for going in towards that second week. But as far as a format is concerned, everything is GSL style group. Even Rensport, Apex is still doing their thing where they're going to end up having their upper bracket, lower bracket, and the match point finals will be played there in Saudi Arabia. But everything's GSL style groups. You have top 4 groups. Top 2 from each one of those groups will end up making it to a single elimination playoff bracket. But what's most important throughout the entirety of the Esports World Cup is watch for these organizations. Everybody's competing for their share of, I think it's like somewhere south of like a couple $1 million, something cool of a prize pool for club championship points. A lot of teams and a lot of rosters combating across the entirety of the month and all of the different esports. You want to make sure that you're going to be watching out for that one at the end of Esports World Cup. But that's all to at least talk about for Esports World Cup for now. We'll shelf that until Monday's episode. We're going to jump back into midseason invitational because we talked about EU and how the LEC came up absolutely flat. But now it's our turn to talk about Korea and how they're doing great at MSI.
Yeah, I mean, no surprise. I think Korea, obviously, always on an international stage, that is who you want to mimic your own game after. Like, Korea is going to probably win the tournament if you had to bet on it, and they've showed up and they have not disappointed thus far. T1, actually a team to me that has really surprised me. I mean, obviously, you know Faker's on the team. Obviously, you know T1's going to be great, but they've really, really showed up and had some really dominant games thus far. We're going to look here against them playing against CFO. This was actually a really close series, and I was talking earlier about Hong Q. He really, really impressed me going up against Faker in lane and really being able to give Faker a lot of problems. But you see here, CFO, T1 going back and forth. T1 actually has a really, really big lead in this game, and they are just kind of playing off the backs of Faker and Doran. But you jump in here into game 2, and it flips the script completely. CFO showing that they can battle with them just like T1 can beat on them. So Hong Q here 4-0 in this second game.
It's interesting, right? Because, I mean, midseason invitational, like, T1 in general, never really here. Faker never really plays well in midseason invitationals. And, well, I think this is more of like a tip of your cap to how good the Flying Oysters are playing. We talked about their dismantling of Movistar Kuwait earlier, and they did bring T1, again, probably the world's #1, at least eyeballed for MSI, 2 silver scrapes. So I think that's what you're mostly being satisfied for when it comes down to CFO. Yeah, definitely would love a stronger red side, though, wouldn't we all? Going in towards this game number 4, T1 definitely got the better as far as the draft is concerned. The Varus, Silas, as well as the J4. Just so much lockdown for T1. And we know how good their team fights can truly be. And although we were praising the same thing for CFO, T1 did write the book on it.
Yeah, 100%. And I just want to say, I think Faker's taken a page from his old book. I mean, MSI used to be their actual event. I mean, 2016, 2017, T1 going back-to-back winning MSI. So it's not like they don't ever perform there. They just haven't in recent years. And I think it's finally, Faker's kind of getting bored. You know, he's always like, I'm winning Worlds. You know, I do well at Worlds. Let's do well at MSI again for a change. So I'm really, really surprised at his performance so far. But I really want to talk about Doran as well, their top laner. He has been tremendous. And he, in my opinion, was the difference in this game right here against CFO, and especially Game 5. He picked Jace, and he was absolutely lights out.
Yeah, again, Doran has constantly been the anchor for T1, and it'll be a continuation for their team to be able to rely on as they will venture on in towards the bracket. As far as other teams are concerned, from the LCK, Gen G going up against Anyone's Legend, China's #1 team, really bringing it to Gen G. Again, another series that went to silver scrapes.
Yes, this was a slugfest. You could see the best of the best League of Legends players in the world. They were in this match, and they were coming for it all. Canyon, great series from him. Pin as well. You can see Pin with a great engage right there on Gwen, just able to catch them out. And obviously, you have the follow-up from Faker on the Azir, from Chovy on the Azir, and just completely dismantling the entire Anyone's Legend team. This game right here, Game 2, was a complete blowout for Gen G, but then it flips tables right here. You go back to Game 3, Anyone's Legend versus Gen G. This is a crazy fight right here. You see getting picked a little bit early. It's going to take a while for them to get under tower, but for a second here, you think, okay, Anyone's Legend might be able to flip this around under tower, but Gen G just continues to dive, and there's no chance.
When it comes to a best of 5, if you're new to League of Legends or you barely watch and you want to get into these invitationals, it's really coming down to who can win a red side. If you can win a red side, you're probably going to end up winning a lot of these best of 5s, and that's exactly what you ended up getting from Gen G. I mean, in that game number 4, I think that's where you got to see a little bit more flexibility from Anyone's Legend, specifically from the Galio pick. Very good support pick from them, but a little bit moments too late in on the blue side. But that game number 3 was just so well played from the red side. I mean, the pick from Gen G just to put themselves in a better position within the first 12 minutes, put themselves in a better position to be able to win the entire series. And as I was hinting at, did go silver scrapes. That means it went map number 5, and it's another classic LCK. Gen G getting way ahead pretty darn early, 13-5, now 14-6 at the 28-minute mark. Yeah, good luck trying to fight over this dragon. Here comes the engage, immediate flash. Immediately gets all of like the lockdown. You felt like that Anyone's Legend was just trying to trail back just to keep their carries alive. But by that point, Faker's on Rise, and he's already getting himself a triple and then the subsequent map win. So big stuff coming through there at the end from Anyone's Legion to at least put Gen G on silver scrapes, but Gen G still took the series.
Yeah, and this is the match that I was really, really surprised at right here. I thought this would be really, really close. I mean, you have VOG, who's been a really, really good team from the LPL, and the biggest thing for me is they played the most matches out of anybody because they had to play the play-in stage. So with their experience from the play-in stage coming in to the main stage, obviously they lost their first matchup, but playing here against T1, I really thought that they would have a really good chance for this, but they just weren't able to arrive in the moment.
I mean, the support Nico with the Jhin combination, and you got Faker on Ori for number 1. Like, that just sucks. And then as, again, from Fearless continuing on throughout the entire series, like T1, their playbook is to get Faker on Ryze eventually. And that ends up happening in this game number 3, but you're already down 0-2 if you are BLG, and your draft was kind of forced into this hand of like the Ahri, the Vi, and the Anessa up top, and albeit like a very good combination, T1 were in the flow state, man, and they're on a lot of good comfort picks. Skarner, Renekton, the Ryze, the Varus, and the Alistar. I mean, those are just household picks when it comes to T1. They've been playing that for just about, what would you reckon, for a couple, maybe 8 years at this point plus?
Yeah, maybe even more. Maybe like getting close to like 15 at this point. I mean, I remember I was a child genuinely when I was watching them play those champions, so we can actually say that.
Yeah.
But the thing for me is I feel like when you play teams like T1 who have a lot of experience, like Faker, for example, in the mid lane, you have to beat them in those early games because that just gets more champions off the board. The later you can get into the series with this Fearless draft, the more you're going into that champion pool, and I think that gives you the best chance at them because if you say, okay, there's 3 games and they're going to beat us in 3 games, Faker's going to play his 3 best characters and you're going to have like no shot. So if you can figure out a way to win that game 1, maybe even win that game 2 and get some champions out of the way where they still have to win 3 games, I think that gives you your best shot.
And setting yourself up for a good Fearless draft, once you inevitably get on that red side, you better hope that you have a good couple picks. Talia seems to be a pretty good pick when it comes down to that red side, but I digress. We'll have to see how Midseason Invitational does play out throughout the entirety of this week. Again, we will be crowning a champion sometime soon, so you want to make sure that you get your butts glued and subscribe along for the Global Gaming Network channel as we will break down all of that plus some more on Monday. But make sure that your audio is in check, and if it's not, maybe you could get a certain lick from this sponsor. It's A-Zone with some audio lick. And shout out A-Zone, one of the leading tour edge when it comes down to audio engineering. You want to make sure that you get your audio right when it comes down to this upcoming segment because we have a lot to discuss. It's Call of Duty Rostermania, and if you've been living under a rock and you have not been watching any of these videos whatsoever, you should end up knowing that a lot of this Rostermania has just been all over the place. Ever since Champs, ever since Optic won Champs, everybody's been making a one-man change. Because if they make more than a one-man change, they actually lose their Esports World Cup roster position. And I think that at this point in time for CDL teams, there's only 3 teams right now that haven't made a change. That would end up being Vancouver Surge, Atlanta FaZe, and then the Miami Heritage. Maybe there's one more in there, Optic, whatever. But we're going to be starting off the conversation with Toronto Ultra. They scapegoated Benjamin Beans from their Champs roster after they lost the way they did, and they're going to be picking up Abe instead.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Toronto was in that, they had to make a move. It was in that position at that point. And I was really surprised, though, by this. I really didn't think Beans would be the person that they would be, pushing to the side, but obviously sad to see. But I am excited that he will still be at Esports World Cup. That is really exciting for me to see. Obviously, he's going to be playing with Orchid, so I really hope that he can still perform really well with Orchid, and who knows, maybe they could make a run as a team like that, not in the CDL.
It'd be interesting. Again, I mean, they dropped Henry to then pick up Beans, so I mean, it should be weird to be able to think how they're going to try to make things work from a triple AR standpoint. Again, Henry was their leading SMG throughout all of the European Elite, so it should be very interesting. But for Ultra, they are picking up Abe. Abe was on that 5 years roster that almost qualified for the Esports World Cup, came up short in a map number 5 in the lower bracket side, but still 4 or 5 years, although disbanding. Abe is one of those young bucks alongside Mercules Lurks to be able to join in the likes of the best in the world. Interested to see how they do. But now we're going to be transitioning our conversation over for Cloud9, as they have also just recently made a change. They dropped Capsule last week, and now they're bringing in Gwyn after Gwyn was just released from Carolina Royal Raven.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm actually excited about this move. I think Gwyn played pretty well. I mean, obviously the Royal Ravens at Champs weren't a surprise. They did not play very well, but I think Gwyn himself actually had a really good event, and I think on a few maps, he was actually really, really frying. So he could possibly bring the firepower that Cloud9 needs. I think Cloud9 has a decent roster, you know, keeping Sib. I think maybe Sib and Gwyn can possibly hook up and make a good little duo, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think mostly it's for Kremp, right? I mean, like Kyle needs like an SMG that he can be able to bounce off of, or maybe like Kyle goes to play more of like the objective role, and then Gwyn can then go play more of like the slay heavy role, because it's kind of interesting because now you got Sib, Spart, Kremp, and Gwyn, and all four of them just want to run across the map and just find every single kill. So it should be interesting to see how they play objectively, but yeah, Gwyn is easily the outstanding player when it comes down to Carolina Ravens. They built around him from the team last year, including TJ, and now that they're fully disbanded, should be able to see what they can do in that blue jersey with the Cloud9 Dawn across his chest at Saudi Arabia for the Esports World Cup. But speaking of all of that, again, not the only Carolina Royal Raven that is under conversation. We also have the Vegas Falcons that are making a change. Priesta is now officially dropped from the Vegas Falcons, and they picked up TJ Halley, who just got dropped from the Carolina Ravens. If Gwyn was their best player, TJ Halley was a close second.
Yeah, 100%. I think this could also be a good move for Vegas as well. I want to talk about TJ Halley. He's known for his search and destroy play. You see right here on the graphic, a 1.14 in his S&D. Obviously, his respawn's not as good. Hopefully, he can work on that going into next year. But look at the team he's joining. And I mean, obviously, this roster could get changed up. And obviously, EWC is going to tell a lot of what this roster has been working on. But I actually really, really like it. I think TJ, for him and XNID joining up for Search and Destroy, I think this could be a really, really good Search and Destroy roster. And then you also have Fred, who's known for his slaying power. So possibly if TJ can figure out how to pick up his respawn modes, XNID, he's been playing really good. You have Fred, who's obviously known for his gunny. I think it could be a decent little team.
Should be interesting, too. Again, they're going through an entire composition change as well. The XNID known SMG player is now going to be picking up the Flex, so triple SMG. XNID will be the third to pick up the SMG, and then I guess third to pick up the AR would technically be TJ. He was playing the SMG Flex for Carolina Royal Ravens. So very interesting to be able to see how that team dynamic does work. I mean, you got a lot of different rings and championships on that one roster. Again, Coach Clayster alongside Arcides as their main AR, and then TJ Halley, Pred World Champion, of course, with Optic, and then XNID, the only Saudi representation on that roster from the beginning. But we also have a lot of different roster changes. We have the coaching change happen for Gorilla Mates. Now we got Vios coming in towards the mix. They dropped Fellow. They are now playing with Diamond Con, who was on War after Gentlemates just dropped Linz officially, who's actually on War, so he'll still be at Esports World Cup as well. And then the only other thing to hint at as far as the Esports World Cup Rostermania is concerned would end up being Omit Brooklyn. They did just get acquired by P7 Esports. Reason being is because Rafi, well, sucks to suck. You can't have two teams at Esports World Cup, so had to get it loaned to P7 Esports. But
I guess it sucks to not suck.
I guess,
you had
yeah.
both teams qualified.
Yeah,
it sucks to not suck.
It's lonely at the top until you have to invite others up there for a cup, I suppose. But that's all for Call of Duty. Again, get involved in the comments down below. We're getting a lot of different shows throughout the entirety of the week, so we can end up talking about all the different roster manias that we end up having along the way. As I was hinting at earlier, we do have more Counter-Strike action unfolding in the upcoming weeks and through the month of July, specifically for Fissure Playgrounds. That is going on throughout the entire month of July, throughout the middle of the weeks, and here are the groups and how they are currently standing. Should be very interesting. Again, Fudia, through that roster change, is in attendance here, Davis, and their opening matchup, I believe, should be against Astralis, but they're also in the same group with like Gamers Legion and Wildcards. So you got a tons of different teams in the same group together that all made different roster changes.
Yeah, 100%. For Group A, I'm really looking at Furia. I think this could be a close match, though. We don't really know how Gamer Legion's going to respond. They've made some roster moves a little bit recently, so that'll be interesting. But I think, coming out of the major that we've just had, I think no question Furia kind of enters as the #1 seed from this group.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Astralis, excuse me, are actually in Group C. So we'll go ahead and hop over towards Group B for you guys real quick so we can talk about the other individuals right here. Lin Vision back in competition. Everybody's hoping for that exact interview to unplay once more from Amelia. They have to go against 3D Max, who had a very lackluster Austin Major, Pain Gaming would also love to rectify what happened for them as well at the previous Austin Major to boot. But hey, Group B, I mean, you feel like I think it's anybody's game over there.
Exactly. It's the complete opposite, I think, of Group A. Group A, we kind of think is Furious group. I think this group could genuinely be anyone. I think you have 3D Max, who's probably the most, established organization in the group. They obviously are the highest VRS ranked team. But you have teams like Pain and Lin Vision, who just made crazy runs and were honestly better, in my opinion, than 3D Max at the major. So I think this group is super interesting, could go any way. I'm going with Pain because I can't remember who it was from their team, but somebody actually recently was interviewed from their team, and they made the comment that, there's a lot of teams that are skipping out on this event, but they're here because there's $1 million Counter-Strike tournament on the line. I love that.
Money to be played, there's games to be had, for sure. So going over towards Group C, now we end up having a lot more teams to at least be talking about, again, for roster changes included. This one didn't so much get hit as far as Group C is concerned, but we do have some other heavy hitters as well. And speaking of the opposite for Pain Gaming, speaking of a team that would love their run back versus them, would be Virtus Pro. They're going up against Tai Lu in their opening series, and then Astralis with MIBR. You feel like that this is probably a toss-up maybe between the three. I think Tai Lu are probably the odd ones out here.
Yeah, I would say so too, but you never know. I mean, Tai Lu as well, they made the good run at Major Austin, but I definitely think that they are the oddball out of this group. We're going to jump over here to Group D now. We have Complexity, BB, Heroic, and Big. Another decently tough group, but I think this is more your traditional group. You see two teams that are two teams that are on the top and two teams that are on the bottom, and I kind of see this here when I look at Complexity and Heroic being the two teams that are above the others.
Yeah, Heroic, again, had a very good group stage throughout the entirety of the Austin Major. Everybody wants to see what they're able to produce going forward, as well as Complexity. Again, I mean, NA's child coming up absolutely short. Want to see what they're able to produce, as well as Big. So, again, all of that is going to be going on throughout the entirety of the week of July 15th to the 17th. We have all of that going on. Again, top two from the groups, then go in towards playoffs for a single elimination matchup. Everything is a best of 3 until grand finals will be a best of 5. But most importantly noted, throughout this tournament, top 8 teams ain't there.
Yeah, 100%. And I think so. That leaves it up for debate. Who wants the money? Like I said earlier, Pain, they noticed that. They're like, okay, all these teams that are better than us ranked, they are normally taking all our money. They're not here this week. So this is our time to shine. So really excited to see what happens. I think my pick going in is Furia. I think Pain has a really good chance as well. I think Virtus Pro, but I think it's going to be a tremendously competitive group of teams. That is the biggest thing that excites me about this group, is everybody's kind of around the same skill level. So it should be some really, really action-packed CS.
This is a really good boot camp, again, ahead of IEM Cologne. A handful of these teams will actually be playing at IEM Cologne at the end of the month as well. But let's not forget, MIBR did beat Team Falcons, although it's a different Team Falcons back at the Austin Major than it is now. So again, it should be a very fun competition. Again, all of that kicks off on July 15th. But speaking of continuous Counter-Strike knowledge as well, ESL has just made a change. They will be joining the likes of just about everybody else. They will be having their third place matchups as well. Just helps kind of spread the love as far as the prize pool is concerned.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm kind of a guy that it's, I like the idea because, like you said, it spreads the money out and it gets everything allocated the correct way. You have a third place team, you have a fourth place team. I'm going to miss the show matches, though. I love seeing all the celebrities and everybody join up to play. It's really fun, but I think it's really good for the players to, ultimately decide the actual rankings of everybody and the placings of everybody.
Especially with how they're changing all of the VR's rankings and making everything a lot more I guess static. The way that the point system is actually going to be working. So getting these third place matches, especially for ESL tournaments, which happen quite frequently, very, very important to be able to differentiate not only prize pooling but also at the same time for those ever so wanted seeding points. Very important.
And I think that's, like you just said, that's the most important thing, is that it actually really, really matters, because I think in years past, a lot of people looked at this third place match as being something that the players didn't really care about. The difference in money wasn't necessarily that impactful to them, and so they might not have tried so hard in the match. But now it's well, do you want to qualify for the major? Because if you want to qualify for the major, you need ranking points, and you need ranking points, you need to win this match. So I think that that's the most important thing, is the fact that they have a system built in behind the game that will actually bring a lot of merit to the game and make the players perform at their highest level. Because I do think there was a time in past where players would not perform at their best in a third place match.
And it's also interesting too. I mean, when you think about it, the more VRS points you have, if we continue on with the way that Blast does their majors or how others are seeing fit, for IEM Cologne, they will have that stage before the actual play-in. So if you can somehow avoid these early stages, these early best of ones, or as they may be plaguing a lot of individuals, you might be in a better shot to be able to make a tournament run. But let us know what you're most excited for when it comes down to Counter-Strike. We got so much confidence in what the tournament scene is going to be producing in the upcoming weeks and months. The top 8 teams will be back in competition just towards the first few weeks of August. You want to make sure that you are subscribed, get in the conversation for all the comments down below, and make sure that you are in tune for all the different shows, whether it's Queued Up, Skill Def, here for Today in Esports, long or short. We are very happy to have you here, and we'll see you on the next one.